Today on Granworks, I'm going to pull this cord through the conduit that goes from my equipment closet into the theater using this pull cord that I installed originally. Stay tuned. It's 2016, so the vast majority of my theater components can actually be controlled via wireless or at worst Bluetooth, but no, it's wireless for most things. There is one holdout though, which is my projector. It's an older Panasonic PTAE8000U. Maybe there's a B on the end for black. In any event, that's an IR one. Handily though, the Harmony hub that I got to control everything does support IR. It has an IR blaster, which can control actually quite a few of them at once, although again, the projector is the only one that I actually care about. Really the only issue with it is that it's maybe, not even 10 feet long, 8 feet long maybe. But the conduit that's going from my equipment closet to the projector is about 17 feet long. And it needs to be a little bit longer than that, obviously, if I want to actually plug it into anything. So what I did is I actually bought an extension cord that's another 12 feet. When I combine that with the original one and just kind of attach them together, not these ends, yeah, I should basically have something closer to 20 feet or 22 feet, and that should be easily enough to actually carry it through. So let's get started. I already had a pull cord left in the conduit going to my projector from when I installed the HDMI cable in the first place. So I attached one end of the IR cable to it, plus another length of pull cord with electrical tape. The additional length of pull cord is so that I always have at least one in the conduit for any future cable pulls. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. I also had to tape the original 8-foot long IR cable to my extension cable. Here's what that looks like all ready to go. Now, I use a cable lubricant every time I pull cable since I found it makes a huge difference. But it's been a while since I last used it, and I didn't remember if this was supposed to be a liquid or a gel. I vaguely remembered it as a gel, but this time it was definitely a thin liquid. I decided to give it a try, because why not? So I put down a towel to stop any overflow and then squirted some of the lube into a bowl. I then essentially soaked the cable and pull cord bundle in the bowl to coat it as best I could. I attempted to pull the cable through 3 times. The first was just me, and that failed almost immediately. The next 2 times were with my son as a helper. He pulled while I tried to provide a clear path for the cable. Those attempts also completely failed as the cable got too hung up at some point and refused to budge each time. I suspected that part of the problem was the very wide HDMI cable and the rather small conduit, and so I ended up pulling out everything but the original pull cord. The goal was to pull the HDMI cable with the IR cable at the same time. Clearly that lube I was using had gone bad, so I just pitched it. I then went to Home Depot for a replacement, but while there found a new alternative. This is a foam-based product that is supposedly so much better than the gel. Rather than lubricating the wire or the cable itself, you spray the foam into the conduit. You then fill the conduit with foam and then run the cable through that foam, which lubricates it automatically and without you having to get all messy. It's a very slick idea. There is a bit of an issue though, and it starts with the IR cable. Note how the jack end is very skinny, but the blaster end, which needs to be in the theater, is notably chunkier. Indeed, it is roughly 1.5 inches wide. My conduit, meanwhile, is only 1.25 inch PVC, which was a really dumb decision I made at the time. The head of the blaster won't fit through there at all. That means that I have to start from the theater side and pull to the equipment closet. But let's look at the attic just above the projector mount. Note how the conduit actually goes to a backer box. This backer box was designed to muffle sound as much as possible, but for reasons, and there were some good reasons, the conduit only is at the top of the box. That means that there's a space of maybe 10 inches where there's no conduit at all. No conduit means no place to spray the foam. But since I need to start from that side, what can be done about that? Well, what I did was get a surrogate pipe of sorts to act as the conduit. The goal was to fill this pipe with the foam and run the cable bundle through that on the way up to the ceiling, hopefully lubricating the cable as it goes. That's the theory anyway. I started by threading the pull cord through the surrogate pipe. Remember that I'd already yanked the old HDMI cable out. Next up is gathering up the HDMI cable, IR cable, and a new pull cord and attaching them in line to the end of the original pull cord. Well, now to try out the foam lube. After shaking well, I attached the flexible hose to it and stuck it in the pipe. There's a chart that says roughly how long you should let it go based on the pipe diameter. It's roughly this long for this particular size pipe. I don't remember it exactly. So after all that prep, let's do it for real. All right.
Okay.
Start pulling again.
Okay. It's a little bit hard with the lubricant. Oh, black part.
You got?
Keep pulling.
Yeah, keep pulling.
Yep, there's a lot of lubricant.
Cool. Yeah, that foam lube worked like a charm, and my surrogate conduit pipe also worked far better than I had any right to. The hard part done, I just needed to hook my projector back up. And that was pretty straightforward. I then made a boneheaded assumption that the IR receiver on the projector was in that translucent section off to the side. It turns out though that those are emitters for the 3D and have nothing at all to do with IR. The IR receiver is that round dot in the middle of the projector face. So after the fact and after thinking that this wasn't working correctly, I just went back and I placed the blaster on top of the projector. And then the reflected IR signals work like a charm. All right. So I guess that could have gone better than that, or at least easier, but maybe I shouldn't complain because all's well that ends well. It does work, and it works pretty great right now. I do have a few hints or tips, lessons learned from that. First, you definitely want to use a lube when you're pulling cable through conduit. It's possible to pull it through, especially if it's a big enough cable, a big enough conduit and small enough cable, but it gets harder and harder the more you have in there, especially the more cables you have in there. The friction is just so great that the lube will make things a lot easier, and in fact might even be necessary in certain cases. My second tip is actually a recommendation. It's to use this Klein foam lubricant. I've used both this and the gel. Obviously the gel this time was a complete failure, but even if it wasn't, the last time the gel was really messy because you had to apply it by hand to the cable, and it just got over everything as you were doing it. This is a very clean and very easy to do. Just pour it in the conduit or spray it in the conduit, and there you go. Super slip. I definitely recommend this. Third, always put in a new pull cord whenever you use the existing pull cord to pull a new cable. If you don't, well, like if I didn't originally do that this time, I would have an HDMI cable in there, but no pull cable. Well, how would I have gotten the IR cable in there? Well, okay, technically speaking, what I could have done was pulled the HDMI cable back out completely, then pulled a new pull cord through, then do what I effectively did, which is attach the HDMI cable and a new one to it. And yeah, that would have worked. It's just, that would have been even more of a pain than this already was. At the very least, I was saved some amount of time by the fact that there already was a pull cable in there, or a pull cord in there, that allowed me to at least try to do this. As far as that goes though, if you want to know how do you actually get a pull cord into the conduit in the first place, I have this video here which describes effectively step by step how to do it. pretty simple, using a vacuum. I'll also have a link down in the doobly-doo. I also maybe will have a link down there or a link here or something, I don't know yet, for how I actually installed the projector in the first place, where it goes into detail about things like that backer box and the conduit and all that type of stuff. I don't know if I'm gonna do that or not yet, since I already kind of did that in text form. Do I want to do a video of it too? We'll see. So if there's a link down there, or if that link up there actually works, then great. If it doesn't, then I probably decided not to, or I haven't yet. We'll see. Final one is actually a recommendation 2, which is the Logitech Harmony Companion remote. This is the system that I'm using to control my theater. It's quite slick. It's one of the smart ones in that it can do wireless, like Wi-Fi, stuff over the network. It can also do Bluetooth, and as we saw, it can do IR if necessary. Easy to set up, easy to use, and if you like the feel of the tactile buttons, then there's not very many choices out there actually. There's this, the Harmony Elite, and maybe a couple others. Strongly recommend this. Now, I don't have a video of this, and I'm not planning on doing a video of this, but if you want to see a recommendation or you want to see a description of how this all works, then I did write up a full review on the Granworks blog, and so I will have a link to that in the description as well. All in all, this was hopefully worth your time watching, and no matter what, thanks for watching.